Okay, here we go. You ready? You thought what? You're afraid? Well, good. You should be. What friends?
All.
Not my classes. This is cakewalk. Mm-mm. Yeah, none of these are hard. Okay. What? I know. This is like the 5th time I've done it today. I can do this with my eyes closed probably. All right. So let's start. Before I do the problems, let's find a blank place to write. Okay, in this little blank place right here, when we took the square root of a negative 5, why not? We can't have a negative in the square root, right? And so when it was a negative in the square root, what did we say we had to do? We did the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 5. And what was the square root of negative 1? I. So we have I times the square root of 5, right? So anytime we have an even index, and that's the number right here, if it's even, you have to have an I. If it's negative, underneath. Okay? So if it's a 2, a 4, a 6, it doesn't matter. If this was the 4th root of negative 5, this would also be I times the 4th root of 5. So if it's even, they all work that way. 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, so if it's not even, let's say it's the 3rd root of negative 5. Okay? So this is odd. So this could be 3, 5, 7, any odd. If it's odd, I get the cube root of negative 1. And instead of being I, this is just negative 1. So you get a negative 1. So it's easier, actually. Yes. So if you, oh, this becomes positive. Sorry. So if it's odd, we put a negative 1 here. And if it's even, we put an I. Okay? Odd, negative 1, even, I. So that's the hardest part of today. That's it. So what are you putting if it's even and it's negative underneath? I. Let's say it was 5 and it's negative under. What do you put outside? Negative 1. Those are your only choices, I or negative 1. And that only happens if it's negative underneath the radical. Oh, it won't be. Okay. So, look at the first example. It's even. It's got a negative under it. What does it have to have in the answer? I. And so then we're going to do this exactly the way we've always done this. So I'm going to have an I. What's the square root of 36? 6. And then I have x to the 6th. So how many get to come out? Nope. So if the index is 2, 6 divided by 2 is 3. It's the square root. Square root's always 2. Okay, so on the next one, it's still a square root. I didn't write the 2 down, but we know it's a square root, right? Because we don't write it down. It's negative on the inside, so what has to be in the answer? So I have 2i. Now the 48, is that a perfect square? No. So we're going to do this. 48. And how many partners do I have? So I have 2 times 2, so that's 4, right? So I'm going to add times of 4. And then I have x to the 4th. So 4 divided by 2 is, so I get x squared. 8 divided by 2 is, and then what was left over? 3. So 2 times 4 is 8. You got one? Okay. Okay, so everybody okay? All right. So here's the only thing that's going to change. What's the index this time? 3. So, okay, so it's odd, but is this one negative underneath? So do I even have to worry about that? Nope. So the next thing I'm going to do, 27 is not a perfect square. So I'm going to do my simplify. And this time, instead of circling 2, how am I going to circle? 3. Because the index is 3. So on the outside, I have a negative 3. And this time, instead of dividing by 2, what am I going to divide by? 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So I get negative 3x y to the second. Is there anything left over? No square root. You only put the square root or the radical sign if there's something left over. Okay, so the next one. I have to negative underneath. So it's negative and it's odd. So which one do I get? I or negative 1? So I already have a negative on the outside, right? So I have negative 1 times negative 1. It's a positive 1. So then I have to simplify the 24. And how many do I circle? 3. So I get to take a 2 out, right? And I'm going to divide by 3. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And then what's left over underneath? So negative 1 times negative 1, we already decided that was positive 2.
So if we have leftover, we have to split whatever's on the outside.
The index? Yes. And it's wrong if you don't. You have to have the index. Okay, so for 5, you guys tried this one yourself. So you should have gotten 4, a to the second, b to the third. Okay, how many, what's the index this time? 3. So how many did you circle? 2 sets of 2's, which is 2 times 2 is 4. It's not a squared. It's a cube root. So watch. If it's 64 and you break this down, I don't know why this is confusing. What's my index? 3. So I have to circle 3. 2 times 2 is 4. Easy peasy. Okay. So how many are you going to circle this time? 4. So break down the 81 and circle 4. Yeah, you can do 3. 7. 81 is not divisible by 7. No, it isn't. Why is no one writing? Break this down. Do the birthday cake thing with the 81. You can do it with 3. Oh, for the love of Pete. Divide by 3. The birthday cake thing with 81. I told you it was easy. Right there. 6x squared y. The 2 is from the problem and the 3 is from the birthday cake. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 4 divided by 4 is 1. All right, number 7. Okay, number 7. So if I'm going to do 80, and how many do I circle? So it's all the 2's. So the 2's get to come out. Now, how many A's do I have? 7. Does 7 divide by 4? No. So what's left over? How many are left over? 3 of them are left over. So one set of 4 gets to come out, right? So I have an A on the outside, but how many stay in? 3. And I have the 5. And then I have 4 divided by 4 is one set of B's.
So you subtract and leave the rest of the
Yes. Yes. When it's not even, you subtract and leave the leftovers in. Okay. So we started doing this yesterday. So look, what's the index when it's written as 3 over 2? The 2, the bottom number, Reuben, the bottom number is the index. So I have 16, this is squared, and then you have to cube it. So what's the square root of 16? 4, and then you take 4 to the third power. So 4 times 4 is 16, times 4 is 64. So 8 to the 2/3, what's the index? 3. So what is the third root of 8? So what number times itself is 8? 2 times 2 times 2. So it's 2 to the second power is 4. What's the index this time? 2. So that's the square root of 9, which is 3 to the third power, is 27.
Oh, good job, Ruby.
Then I have negative 32 3/5. So, first of all, it's a negative. The root is 5, and then I raise it to the third power. So, do I get I or negative answer?
Negative answer.
Because
It's
it's odd, so it's a negative answer. So what number times itself 5 times is 32? 2 times 2 is?
Bless you.
Thank you. 4 times 2 is? Times 2 is?
16.
Times 2 is?
32.
So
Hey,
2.
you smart, dude.
So this is going to be a negative 2, right? We said it's negative. So now it's negative 2 to the third power. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Negative 8.